to my kitchen. Now with Christmas almost here, I really wanted to film and share with you one of my favourite things to make at this time of year, and that is my Christmas gingerbread house. So what I've actually done is create these two sheets which actually have all the shapes that you'll need to create the gingerbread house. So what I'll do is I'll put a link below to where you can download this, and then you just want to print it out, cut it out and use the measure templates. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is actually make the gingerbread. What I've got here is 120 grams of butter, 50 grams of caster sugar, 50 grams of brown sugar, 290 grams of plain flour, some golden syrup, which we will need 90 grams, a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, 1.5 teaspoons of ground ginger, and half a teaspoon of cinnamon. So into here I've got the butter. I'm going to add the caster sugar, the brown sugar, add 90 grams of golden syrup. Okay, now in the bowl what I'm going to do is just sieve in the plain flour, and I'm going to add bicarbonate of soda, the ground cinnamon and the ground ginger. Now as we've got this here, what I'm going to do is melt this all down. Once that's all melted together, what you want to do is make sure you take it off of the heat. I've got all my dry ingredients in this bowl, so I'm just going to pour our melted mixture into that. And just using a spatula or a spoon, what I'm going to do is just mix that all together. Okay, so once that's all combined, using my hand, just make sure that it's all mixed together into a dough form. And then I'm going to put my mixture onto that and just push it down until it's about 1 centimetre to 2 centimetres thick, like so. And then I'm just going to completely wrap that up and pop that into the fridge for about half an hour. Okay, so for the next stage, what I've done is I've just taken the dough out of the fridge. I've got some parchment paper here and some oven trays. Now I've preheated the oven to 180 degrees, and what I've also done is printed out all of the shapes, cut them all out, so we will use those in a second. Okay, so I've rolled that out and it's about 5 millimeters in thickness. So what I'm going to do is just start cutting out some of my shapes. Now I've cut out all my shapes using the templates, I'm just going to put those in the oven for 10 minutes. So you can see that these ones have gone kind of a golden brown colour, which is exactly what we want. Now what I'm going to do is, these are still really hot, so please be careful, but I'm going to take my templates again, and if I lay those on, you can see that some of the shapes have enlarged themselves slightly. So what I'm going to do is just cut them back out again, so that the pieces are the exact shape that we're looking for. And it's better to do this when they're still hot, because they're still slightly soft, so you can cut through them without cracking them. Okay, so what I actually did with the smaller pieces was actually take those out after 5 minutes, just because I didn't want those to go too crispy because they were so small. Okay, now I've got all my pieces here and they've all cooled down. And what I've actually done is create some royal icing, and this is what we're going to use to stick them together. Now this is quite a thick consistency. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to take the base piece, the front and the back, and the 2 sides. Now I have got some pots here just to lean up against it if it isn't standing up on its own. Now the first piece I'm going to take is one of the back pieces. Now make sure that the nice side is facing outwards, and we're going to place this on about 1 centimetre from the back. So all I'm going to do is just run that icing along the edge there, and then just push that in place. What you might want to do is just run another piece of the royal icing just to glue that down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place my ground ginger pot. So the next piece is one of these side panels. So I've got the nice face facing outward. So what I'm going to do again is put a line of the royal icing along there, and also a line down the side here where it's going to match, and pop that into place. So I'm going to do the other side panel. So here we have the start of our gingerbread house. Okay, so the two roof panels that we've got, one is actually slightly bigger than the other one, or kind of wider than the other one. So that one is actually going to sit slightly higher up so that the other one can slot in behind it. Now they're going to be flush to the back, but we're going to have a slight overhang at the front. Okay, so we've got the 4 pieces here which are for our chimney, the 2 sides and then the 2 middle parts. We've got 2 pieces here that are going to go above the door, and we've got 1 piece left here which is actually the doorstep. 2 pieces of royal icing along there, and then just slot the smaller piece onto that and the larger piece just onto there. And then I'm going to put royal icing again down those 2 panels and add the final piece of the chimney on to there. And then I'm going to glue down the door step. Okay, so the last bits to go on are actually to go above the door, but I'm going to leave those on until we've added the door on. Okay, so now the royal icing has all been left to dry on the gingerbread house, we're going to actually decorate it. So I've got the gingerbread house here, I've got some icing in some different colours, I've got some decorating tools here, so we'll just go through and I'll show you how I decorate it. First of all, we're going to start with this brown kind of burgundy colour which I've mixed up to look like brick. So this is going to be for the chimney. Okay, so first of all, before I roll it too thin, I'm just going to cut myself a thin strip which is about 5mm in width, and I'm just going to leave that to one side for a second. Now with the rest of it, I'm going to roll this out so it's quite a bit thinner. So probably about 2mm in thickness. And then because this is going on the chimney stack, I'm going to create like a brick effect. Just work out the height of the chimney stack and just cut myself a row of those. So I'm going to pick that up and add that on. And then where the chimney stacks go down, I'm just going to cut that off because that will be attached to the house. And then what I'm going to do is, with the strip that I had earlier, is just take some edible glue, paint a line just around the top, take the bit that I cut off that was a bit thicker and just wrap that round. So then I'm going to bring my house in and taking the royal icing that we've been using, just apply that to the back of the chimney, and then we're just going to stick that in the centre of the roof. And then the next thing I'm going to do is the tiles on the roof and the front door. So I've got the red here, So for the tiles on the roof, what I'm going to do is I just need 14 squares. So I'm going to make these about 1.5 centimetres by 1.5 centimetres. Okay, so we're just going to start on the left hand side of the roof next to the chimney. So I'm going to add on some royal ice in there, and we've just got our roof tiles here. So what I'm going to do is put 2 next to each other, and then on the back of another one I'm just going to put a little bit of royal ice in there and just stick that over the top. Now on the other side, so there we have our roof tiles. So we've got our chimney and our roof tiles. Okay, so next what I've done is I've just created a little template just so I know kind of roughly how big I want the door to be. And I've rolled out a little bit more of the red, so I'm just going to place that on and cut my door out. Using this flat tool here, it's just create some lines down the door just to give it a little bit more detail. So I'm just going to put a little bit of edible glue just on the back of that, and I'm going to stick that into place. Here I've got just a little bit of yellow, which I'm just going to add as a door handle and stick that in place. Now for the side windows, just here I'm going to add some window shutters onto those. So I've just got some light blue fondant here, and using one of the templates that I use to cut out the pieces, I can work out exactly what size the window is. Place my template onto this piece of icing, and I'm going to cut out the square that we took out of the windows. I'm then going to cut those in half, and then using this tool, which has kind of a fan on there, I'm just going to run that down the shutters just to make them look like they're made out of wood. And then I've got a small star plunger here, which I'm just going to cut out 4 little stars. And using the edible glue, I'm just going to pop a bit on there and then stick those either side of each window. And then 2 on the other side. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to add is the Christmas tree and the Christmas wreath. So for that I've got some green icing. I'm going to create a cone shape. And then what I'm going to do is cut this down so it's roughly the right height that I need. And then you want to make sure that it's going to fit once you've cut it. Okay, so to make the Christmas tree, what I've got is some nail scissors. So I've got a couple of pairs here, or these are actually my favourite ones to use just because they're a lot flatter. And then starting at the top, just snip into it. So I'm going to start the top doing 3 snips, and then underneath, just in the gap, I'm going to keep going. And as I do them, I'm just going to pull them out slightly, and you want to just keep going down the whole of the tree. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of royal ice in where it's going to sit, and just lift that up and pop it into place. Okay, so to create the Christmas wreath that's going to go on the door, what we want is just a thin sausage shape, and then we're going to cut that, and we want to make a donut shape, which is going to be the right size to fit onto the front door. Now with the rest of it, you just want to roll that out quite thinly. What I've got here is a small holly cutter, so I'm just going to cut some pieces of holly out. Cut these down so they're a lot smaller, so I'm just going to cut the bottoms off like that. And I'm going to pick these bits of holly up, place those on, and just push the centres in so they wrap around like that. And make sure you still got that hole in the centre, so you might just want to push those out like that, which is going to make it look like the wreath. Then got a tiny bit of the red that we use, so I'm just going to create 3 tiny little balls. That can then just be added to the front door. I can then just put a little bit of edible glue on the back of that and stick that. Okay, so next what we're going to do is actually create the line of lights that are going to run around the house. So I've got my extruder gun here and I've put some green in there. And then I'm going to take my royal icing and just starting at the top, I'm just going to add a little blob there. And then a blob in the 2 corners here, and then 2 in between. So 1 there, 1 there, and the same on the other side, like that. And then I'm going to pick up the string of green and just stick that in the top one to start with. And then down this side, I'm just going to create some loops coming down and then create the same loops going down the other side. 1 there, 1 in there, and then 1 sticking onto that royal icing there, and then just trim that off. Now I'm going to keep these little bits because what I want to do is just cut off some really small bits of green, which are going to be the end of the lights. So I've got some different colours, so I'm just going to get a tiny bit, this one is the blue one, and just make a really small ball in the centre of my hand. I'm then going to push down on one side just to create like a teardrop shape and just push that down to flatten it. I'm then going to do that for all the different colours. So I'm going to take my tiny little green pieces that I've got and just roll those into really tiny balls. And then using some edible glue, I'm just going to pick those balls up and stick that where I'm going to have a little light. And then I'm going to pick one of these lights up and then I'm just going to stick that onto there, and I'm going to run that all the way along. Okay, so that's all of the string of lights added. Now that they're on there, we've actually got our last 2 pieces of gingerbread here, which are to go above the door. So I'm going to put some of this on there and just put it in between the gap, like that, and again onto the 2 edges of this one and just push that in. So there we go, and then that can dry. So the last 2 bits to do is the pathway and the snowman that is going to sit here. For the pathway, I'm just going to take, I've got some different coloured greys here and the brown that we used before. So I'm just going to create some balls and push those down. Then I'm going to cover this section in front in some edible glue, and I'm just going to push these into place. And the last thing that we're going to model is the snowman that goes here. So what I'm going to do is create 2 balls of icing, one which is slightly bigger than the other. Okay, so for his arms, I'm just going to have a small ball there and just push on one side to create this teardrop shape. I've got some blue here, which I'm just going to use for his scarf, and then just cut a long thin piece. And then for his face, so I've got his head here, so what I'm going to do is just add a small amount of edible glue there and add on an orange nose. So I'm going to make 2 really tiny balls of black and these are going to be his eyes. And so I'm just going to make 2 little dents there and there and stick those in. I'm just going to create and stick those all together. I'm then going to add just 2 little buttons down the front and finish him off with a tiny bit of this pink petal dust, just to give him some cheek. And then to stick him down, I'm just going to pop a little bit of royal ice in and stick him down. Now what I have got is 3 little snowballs, which I'm going to add on once we've put the snow on. Okay, so now we've got all of the icing details on, we're going to add the snow. Now what I've done is create some royal icing here. Now I've used 250 grams of royal icing sugar to 50 ml of water. So it gives us quite a stiff consistency, but it's thinner than the one we made to stick it all together. What I'm going to do is start on the roof. So I'm going to start on this side. What I'm going to do is start putting that on, and we want to come over the edge slightly so that it looks like snow. And on the corners, what we can do is just create some snowflakes just by pulling the royal icing down. And then we're going to go all over the roof. Now around the tiles, we're just going to go around them so it looks like just a gap in the snow. So that's the roof done. Now on top of the chimney here, what I'm going to do is just put a layer on the top so it looks like snow, and just bring that down the side of the chimney. Okay, so the next bit I'm going to do is just this front archway here. So I'm just going to cover that with a layer of snow, and also at the corners and in the middle just put a little bit too much ice in and pull down. Put that down there. And then now the last bit is to work on the bottom. So I'm going to start at the back, and we just want to fill this in, so kind of create an edge. Fill that space in. I'm just going to use a tool here just to make sure it's all around in there. And then I've got the 3 snowballs that I created earlier. So I'm just going to pop those next to the snowman there. And there we have our Christmas gingerbread house. I really hope you enjoyed this video tutorial and that you enjoy making your own gingerbread houses. If you did like the video, then please give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more of my video tutorials, then please click subscribe. Merry Christmas!